Now that the ZV-1f is out and the Google Pixel 7 and the iPhone 14 and every other point and shoot on the market is at our disposal, as well as a ridiculous amount of mirrorless cameras to choose from, now is the Sony ZV-1 still a good purchase then? So why do I reach for my ZV-1 over my other cameras, or my phone even? And will I be picking up the new Sony ZV-1f, the fixed focal length little brother to this guy? Well, I have an unexpected answer to that question and some surprising comparisons from my high-end cameras to this one, and 8 clear-cut reasons that will answer. Is the Sony ZV-1 worth it in 2022 and beyond? So I'm modeling this video after my Sony A7C video where I questioned also, is it worth it? And why I still reach for the A7C compared to the Sony ZV-1. Because recently I hopped on a plane again to travel to my parents' house in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is my 3rd trip in the last 3 months. And the first trip I traveled with my Sony FX3. And the second trip I traveled with my Sony A7C. And now I've got my Sony ZV-1. So I'm doing this video because it's easy to compare the video quality across all 3 cameras when you're in the same setting. And I recently took my Sony A7C in the lake with me, just like this. Okay, we are in Lake Norman with Rocco, and we are gonna go paddle in the lake. He's got a floaty and a stick, and we're ready to go. Take the big ocean with our pirate shanties. So it's crazy how close those 2 images look, with minor variances in my color grade, but the Sony A7C is $1,000 more expensive than the ZV-1, not to mention how costly the lenses are on top of that price. So our first reason to pick this up is its insane value, as it goes from around $400 used to about $700 brand new. So you get a lot for your money. And if you know how to use the ZV-1 correctly, which is usually all about exposure and color grading, you may not be able to tell the difference. Yet, the biggest difference is I had a variable ND on my Sony A7C, whereas here I have only 2 stops of internal ND. So what do you have to do to sort of overcompensate for it? I'm boosting up the shutter. I am at 1/1600th shutter speed, which is a bit crazy. I try to keep it at 1/50th. I'm not too strict about it, but let me show you what that would look like. Okay, so now we are at 1/50th. And this is the shutter speed for the 180-degree rule that you're supposed to have for pure motion blur. That looks most cinematic, which is I'm shooting in 24 frames per second, so double that is 1/50th. But this is not gonna work. So here we go, let's boost it back to where zebras are telling me it is okay enough. So we'll go back to 1600 again. This is obviously gonna be much different motion blur, but the image is still good. I don't know if a lot of people would have noticed if I didn't mention it. So did you even notice that my shutter speed was so crazy? I think some of us tend to get bogged down in all the shoulds when a camera like the ZV-1 is all about usability and practicality. So my reason number 2 is its auto mode. It's all you actually need. The ZV-1's intelligent auto mode for both photo and video is fantastic for beginners or just pros on the go. Okay, so another feature that I think is sort of underutilized by people that consider themselves sort of pro photographer or videographers is the intelligent auto, either photography or videography mode, which is just intelligent. And then it's got the either picture of the reel or the camera. So this is we're at 1/125th shutter. I'm at f2.0, ISO is 1/60th, and it's auto ISO, and there's no picture profile on it. So this is what the Sony ZV-1 thinks I should be doing right now at sort of a difficult time of day where it is backlit. I guess you can get blown out as well. I think my shirt's already blown out. Looks like the water is. So this isn't how I would do it, but we also have the standard picture profile, and the colors straight out of the camera are pretty good. So I think if you were a newbie, putting it in this intelligent auto mode would probably be the best way to go, and just generally doing that. I don't think you need to overthink it. Or if you want to tinker with the picture profiles, this is reason number 3. This is a great camera to grow with, to learn the craft. It's great for beginners, but because it also has all the settings that your full frame cameras will have, you can kick it into manual mode and learn how to use your camera. So when you're ready and you've saved up, you can upgrade and transition smoothly to those bigger cameras, because you will have played around with
all the settings and likely learned how to color grade some flatter picture profiles like H or S-Log, giving you more creative control than you get with just the standard color, which again is still excellent, though you'll find that ZV-1 is almost as easy to color grade as it is to just pick up and shoot.
The fact that I can just pick up this camera, I can swim with it, I can put it down and pocket it, I'm not really worried about dropping it. I always keep this sort of hand strap to it, just in case. You never know if you're gonna drop anything. But yeah, I just wanna see, what do you think of the image quality by compared to the Sony A7C when I use it in a lake? I'm shooting in both an H-Log3, and again, the exposure is gonna be very different. I'm shooting at 1.8 at 24 millimeters, so we're wide open. I think I had auto exposure on, just like, or auto ISO, just like last time. So yeah, what do you think? It's another beautiful day in the lake. I love that I can be out here swimming, holding my camera, and it's pretty ideal.
So what did you think of the colors from the standard profile to a more flat, to a graded look? Now, in case you didn't know, but the advantage of being able to shoot in a log format like H-Log3 is that it increases your dynamic range and ability to save highlights and recover shadows, which brings me to reason number 4. Shooting in log also helps you color grade and match to your higher end cameras, making the ZV-1 a phenomenal B or C cam. Here, look at how I match HLG3 from a recent video.
So here I think is a probably more true test, which is I'm using a similar picture profile and I'm gonna use the same LUT and not gonna really tinker with much else, just to see, can you actually match? I also am using ND filters on all of them. So I'm just trying to get the right exposure. They have different base ISOs. I think the FX3 is at 100. This one's at, the ZV-1 is at 250. And I think the A7C is at 125. So they all have different base ISOs because completely different sensor sizes. So let's see how this works. And I've took some other sample footage and hopefully this test will be much better than the previous one. So again, my A7C here, my FX3 here, and my ZV-1 here.
So clearly the ZV-1 can be an amazing C or B camera, but many times it's my only camera. And as an A cam, it's a beast on its own, meant for traveling and vlogging, which brings me to reason number 5. It's so damn small. It's a perfect camera to not just pocket, but to vlog in public with.
Okay, so I'm off again. Bags packed. And this time, instead of taking my Sony A7C, I'm gonna take my Sony ZV-1 because it's smaller, it's easier to pack, and I think it's the Sony ZV-1's turn to try it out. So we're gonna go in here.
However, I'm really good at traveling, I am horrible at vlogging. Even though it's super discreet, it's not the camera's fault because it really is the perfect tool to sneak around with. Now, most of these shots I got with were from the hip with nobody noticing, something I couldn't do with my bigger camera. And it's a skill I really do want to get better at, which is using this camera in public. So it's like training wheels of a camera for me. I can get the high quality shots that I need without anybody noticing, or I can try to be brave, practice, and try to talk to it like a big boy.
In Charlotte, and you probably can't hear me. But yeah. The one thing I wanted to add was how much I hate trying to talk to the camera while I'm in public. And I thought using the ZV-1 would be better, but it's just something I'm not really good at. And maybe most people don't really want you to be talking to them. They're pulling out a camera at the airport.
So again, it's something I need to get better at because what makes this maybe the best vlogging camera period and why it's way better than your phone is reason number 6, the audio. The built-in mic is fantastic and better than my full frame camera.
So I'm gonna compare the Sony A7C with and without post-processing with a dialogue preset on Premiere Pro. And also the other thing I want to talk about is the in-body microphone. So I've got no extra boom attached, and I think you could probably hear me. Can you hear me? You say hi?
Hi.
And so we're just going to watch the thunderstorm come in and hopefully Not get hit by lightning.
What's the lightning?
Lightning is that streak of color in the sky. Yeah. It goes and you'll see it.
Well, what's the color?
So now you've heard that. I've always had the sense that the Sony ZV-1 was a little bit better, and I'm not sure why or if it's accurate, but this is what it sounds like with no post-processing, straight out of the camera, with all the ambient noise going on, the waves crashing, the birds chirping, and just general boat motors going and people laughing. And now this is what it sounds like, again, just as I've had it the whole time with its post-process. I have the dialogue preset on. I've cleaned up some of the noisy ambient sounds and just sort of boosted, I believe, the male vocal. I think it's called male boost or something like that. So you can hear what this sounds like with and without, and it's pretty good. So I'm not attaching, I never usually bring an extra boom mic with me. So it's just that great out of the camera, and that's one reason the Sony ZV-1 is still an amazing camera to have. Just point and shoot and record, and it's great like that. Okay.
Dang, that's like 1,000% better. Now, I knew it was going to be good because you can literally see how large of an area the microphone takes up on the camera body, but to actually hear the difference. Now, if you want even better audio, you can always attach a boom mic to it. You can plug it in the 3.5mm audio jack on the side, or, and this is ridiculous, but it is an advantage that the ZV-1 has over the ZV-1f because it has a hot shoe, which means it has electronic contact points within the mount that can communicate with the accessory directly, like a microphone. So you could attach this XLR handle to it, which I honestly don't know if I've ever seen this before, but okay, so this probably looks ridiculous, but you can tell that the mic is working. The mic is working, and I don't know, gives it a little top handle. I mean, this is a pretty pro setup. I don't know if I'd ever use it like this, but it is possible because you have the hot shoe. So there's that. Okay, but the whole point is you don't need to. You actually want this setup to be as small as possible because reason number 7, it's so easy to fly in a gimbal, and the cheapest imaginable ones, like the ZHIYUN M2 Crane, which is one of the highest quality, most affordable gimbals on the market. It's like only $150, and it pairs beautifully with the ZV-1 for vlogging or ducking. Here, let me show you. So another thing I really love about using the Sony ZV-1 is the ZHIYUN M2 Crane. It is the cheapest, lightest, most portable gimbal to use, not just with the ZV-1, but just in general to use. I've even used it on my Sony A7C. They have made newer versions of this, but I still find myself using this. It's easy to set up. It's so powerful compared to what the Sony ZV-1 weighs that I don't have to really spend a lot of time trying to really tinker with getting the balance perfect. I pretty much just put it on and it's good enough. Probably should get better at balancing. I would use it more often that way, but because it's so easy, I could just put it on and go with it. And you know, it's great for vlogging. It doesn't add that much more weight to it, but it actually adds like a little grip so I can extend the field of view a bit. And it's just smooth and stable. So with the active steady, people feel like that's a bit too close, but I don't mind it at all. This focal length is pretty perfect for me. And it's really good just to make those shots look that much more cinematic, because the thing is, Sony ZV-1 pretty powerful as far as images compared to even the Sony A7C and FX3 that I have. So adding this little extra cinematic touch with it being smooth with the gimbal, it just sort of adds to the sort of higher production quality value of a vlog shot like this. Now, speaking of vlog shots, let me just get to the last and final reason why the Sony ZV-1 is still worth it no matter what the year is, and why I won't be picking up the ZV-1f. Because, and this is a controversial reason, but reason number 8. And I do actually have a bonus reason after this with maybe the best / most fun / most underutilized feature on this camera. But first, reason number 8, and that is the zoom range. And I have a whole video coming up on this later where I dissect the best focal length if you're going to have one prime lens to travel with, or your camera has a fixed focal length like the 20mm on the ZV-1f. And I think people get a little obsessed with ultra wides when they're vlogging, not realizing how distorted your images will be, as in it's not accurate to real life. And then you look at all the kit lenses that come with most Sonys and most mid-range zooms, they all start at 28mm, and the ZV-1 has a zoom range of 24 to 70 with a variable aperture of 1.8 to 2.8, which is brilliant. I'd love a full frame zoom equivalent, but as most will know, and why I believe the ZV-1f exists, is because everybody cried at how tight the 24mm is for vloggers, because when you have active steady on, and after all is said and done with the crop, you're actually closer to 28mm, which is way too close to vlog, right? Well, I say no, it's not. My favorite focal length is 24 to 28, because faces don't get too distorted and you still get enough of the environment that you get the coverage you need. Plus, when you turn the camera around, you got a fairly true to life viewpoint. And then you can zoom to 70mm. I get it though, a range of 18 to 50 would be perfect for a lot of people, but after playing with this camera and my other kit lenses, I don't mind and almost prefer vlogging at 24 to 28ish, if it means we get the 70mm reach too. So I'm happy the ZV-1f exists for people who strictly vlog. But the versatility of this camera is fantastic, and the fact that you can fit this all in your pocket is almost more than we deserve. Oh, kidding, sorta, but it also has one more trick up its sleeve, and every time I pull this camera out, I almost forget that I can do this, and this is the bonus reason. This camera does 960 frames per second for that super duper stupid slow-mo shots, and sure, it's only in 720p, but with the right lighting conditions, it's certainly usable, and it's definitely fun. It just increases the versatility and value of the ZV-1. This camera really has it all for the price point, and I can't wait to see what's in store for us next with the Sony ZV-2. But for now, this camera is without a question still worth it in 2022 or 2023 or 2697 or whatever. Now I'll leave you with a few more comparison shots with the ZV-1, A7C, and FX3 so you can really see how great of a value this guy is and how the image holds up against some full frame cameras. Now, thank you for your time and attention. I've got a bunch more videos on the way, so consider following along and subscribing to see what's next. All right, thanks guys. Bye.